Hello, everybody. Jeff Mason with SimpleBiz360 here, coming to you from stlewispodcast.com. That's stlewispodcast.com. We got Alex Dietrich on the boards, Mason Von Lepbetter on the intro. I'm Jeff with SimpleBiz360.com. And we are here today talking about tool number 62, establish your core hallmark and live up to it. So what is that? Well, think of a hallmark, or think of that, we're in the core chapter now. So think of that core hallmark as, I don't know, what would you want on your business tombstone when everything is said and done? How would you want to be remembered? Well, maybe you want to be remembered for a skill. Maybe your core hallmark is a skill. Maybe you're a drywaller, but you're a taper. I've always heard, I don't do drywalling, I don't do taping, but man, taping is an art in of itself. So maybe you're going to be remembered as one of the best tapers ever. Maybe you're going to be remembered as one of the best wedding photographers, or best wedding planners, or, oh my gosh, the things you could do with a lawn. You were the resurrection guy. You resurrected lawns. I don't know. Or is it going to be something that's more service related, or kind of attitude related, or philosophy? How do you go about doing business? How do you perform service? Are you on it? Or, what are you I was referred to one time, and still am in one circle. I'm considered the get it done guy. Yeah, I mean, that's what I'm considered at this place, because I helped solve some warranty issues, and they never forgot that. So, but in my case, what I did is, when I worked in the Wall Street area right out of college, in my first entry-level job, I had the distinct pleasure of working in a small little section of Wall Street, and I called on large Wall Street law firms. I called on brokerage houses, clearing houses. I called on banks, and I called on insurance companies. So I had like Chase Manhattan Bank and AIG before it was a household name. Had big Wall Street law firms: Cadwalder, Wickersham and Taft, Dewey, Bushby, Palmer and Wood, Dewey, Ballantyne, Bushby, Palmer and Wood. I mean, big law firms. So, at any rate, at the end of dealing with folks there and finishing my meetings or finishing transactions, I would always ask them, "Hey, I'm a young guy. What advice could you give me? What would you say would be the best business advice you could give a person of my age and stature, young stature in the business world?" And when I jumbled all this into a salt shaker and shook it up and sprinkled it out, it came out: be professional. And I was to define professionalism the way I wanted to. So what's really been neat is, if we fast forward, to 1989, when I decided to write this book, I then entered into this period of my career where everything was a creative exercise. So I knew what I wanted written on my business tombstone at the end, and I knew that everything I was doing, I would take notes on, I would catalog, I would remember, I would identify with as the decades go on, and some stuff would make the book, some stuff wouldn't. Obviously, some stuff is going to make the podcast, and some won't. But, in that process, I'm not perfect. I got plenty of people out there that don't think I'm professional, that didn't think I was professional, made some mistakes, made some enemies, just a byproduct of being in the business world. I certainly have tried to curtail that over the last amount of decades, and bring that in and make sure that everybody, that I'm winning the middle of all these business relationships. But you know what? It's impossible. You can't always do it. There's plenty of people out there that don't feel I was professional. But I have tons of emails and tons of stories, and there's a lot of different business personnel you could talk to that would say, you know what, that guy was a pro. And that's what I want written on there. So I chose that, and I worked towards that goal for 30 years. So what's yours? And I encourage you to do this, and I encourage you to pick a spot to go to. Windridge Solitude, which I mentioned in my book, it's a beautiful place in the Ozarks. Got 4 cabins. You can stay there. You have to schedule ahead of time, but it's a great place to go. Reflect, think, contemplate, pray, think, just really refresh yourself. Take walks on their beautiful 137 acres. It's just a great spot to go to. But I encourage you to think about that. What would you want written on your business tombstone at the end of your career? And what is it that you're doing right now in your business that could be that hallmark in progress? And pick it, choose it, work at it, refine it, polish it, really make it your own and allow you as a result to stand out from your competitors and not blend in. And the way I always look at it is, if there's 10 competitors out there fighting for a spot or fighting for spots, do you want to be 8 of those 10, or do you want to be 2 of those 10? I say you want to be 2 of those 10. You want to stand out with one other competitor and really help to kind of quiet down the competitive noise with the other 8. And you can do that by picking a core hallmark you can call your own. So I'm going to give you, I got a lot of stories, but I'm going to give you one that for me reinforced that I was on the right track. And there's not a lot of times, folks, that we get a chance to get reinforcements in the business world. And not everybody tells us about the things we're doing great, but they'll tell us about the things we're doing wrong, for sure. But I had an interesting situation. I made young men's shorts and pants for Kohl's for many years. And I was in the midst of a springtime in the late 90s where I was delivering hundreds of thousands of shorts. And my buyer unexpectedly was told by the doctors one day, hey, you have stage 4 HIV. You've got to get out of stressful situations. And he was my buyer one afternoon, and I never heard from him again. He was gone the next day. So we were called into, my boss and I were called into Kohl's headquarters up in Menominee Falls, Wisconsin, and it was a hot May day. It was very hot, and the air conditioning hadn't been turned on in the headquarters there. And if any of you have ever called on Kohl's, you probably know what I'm talking about. We were in these little rooms with no window, no air. It's about 5 or 6 of us in this little teeny room. We were absolutely baking. Now, when you're under pressure like that and they're questioning everything that you're doing and you've done, and why are these prices the way they are? Why is all this? You're even sweating and getting even more hot under the collar. But we let professionalism rule. We let evidence be our factual guide. We presented everything fairly and squarely. We were very, very forthcoming. We were 110% honest with the whole situation. And, we were making very expensive fabrics and very expensive shorts for Kohl's. But they, the buyer wanted to chase these specialty fabrics that had all these tricky washes on it. We were enzyme, silicone, sand, washing all these shorts. It was quite the undertaking. And so, long story short, we were excused from this meeting, and the good folks at Kohl's, I must say, were phenomenal. They looked at everything factually. They agreed with everything we presented. They understood we didn't persuade the Kohl's. We didn't do anything nefarious at all. Everything was on the up and up, and we were just executing what the buyer wanted us to do. Well, fast forward a couple months later, I had the opportunity to compete for a large Sonoma Chino program in the late 90s, and we won it. And sometime, I don't know, around June or July, late June, early July, we won the Chino program. And then fast forward to an August trade show. We went to the Magic Show, which some of you might be familiar with, and it's in Las Vegas twice a year. And here we are at Magic in late August. I'm at my company booth, and all the entourage from Kohl's comes by, and everybody's there. And the divisional merchandise manager, a gentleman by the name of Paul Jones, very nice guy. He was spearheaded this effort in May, and he was with the group, and the group, shook my hand, got to know everybody, said hello, thank you, you guys doing great, blah blah blah. And as they walked off, Mr. Jones said, Jeff, could you come out into the aisle for a second? I said, sure. I went out into the aisle, and he said, I want you to know that the reason we're here today and the reason you have that Chino program is directly related to how you conducted yourself in that hot little room in May. And, it was one of those rare moments where you just go, check, check. I get it. This is what I work for. I want this guy's a pro to be on my business tombstone at the end. And this was saying, Jeff, you were nothing but professional, and that's why you were awarded the business. And we want to do business with people like you. So, folks, I'm just encouraging you. It does matter. It does make you money. It can make you money. So just consider, what is your core hallmark? Establish what it is, and then live up to it. And you have to do that. So, lost in the shuffle track for today. I recently found out I have a lot of relatives that were that settled and lived for quite a while in Pilger, Nebraska. Small little town, 300 some odd people. They're famous for 2E4 tornadoes that ripped through, twin tornadoes, twisters. I think it was back in 2010 that came through town, ruined quite a bit of the town. But if you go south from Pilger, Nebraska, you run into Lincoln, Nebraska, and there's a gentleman born in 1965 out of Lincoln, Nebraska, Matthew Sweet. And Matthew Sweet went on down to the University of Georgia, Athens, that hot little music mecca in the late 80s and 90s, and he was part of that scene down there and really grew his name, if I'm understanding the chronology correct. But he came out in 1991 with the title track to his album called Girlfriend, and I'm telling you, the first time I heard this track, it was just one of those tracks that just, boom, it lit me up. I'm like, I love every lick of this. I love the sound. I love the, it was one of those feel-good songs. It's just cool. So if you could go find Matthew Sweet, and it's called Girlfriend, released in 1991, short song, 4 minutes or so. So at any rate, thanks so much for sharing with us. Please go back, consider the January 1st blog, go back on my website, the 3Y Challenge. We did an 18-minute video, 19-minute last week that was on the 3Y Challenge. So go or it wasn't last week, it was on the January 9th. So go back and check that out. And hey, please hold on to that sand. Keep pleasing those customers and keep the shiny side up when you're driving. Thanks so much. We'll see you next week.